Oh yeah, they got something going on. I don't know. We'll soon find out though. They got this whole thing blocked off. Stay there? Stay home? She there, she there. Huh? Stay in there. Stay in there. Oh, was it? Yeah.
Y'all found it?
Yeah, I'm not.
Hey, man, take it off me, partner. I'm gonna hurt you.
Okay, Rita. Boy, they assumed it was pretty big.
Huh?
They must have assumed it was pretty big.
Whoever called.
Right. Is she in there? Yeah. Oh. Oh, wow. Yeah, like that? I thought it was something major. Yeah. All of this? They didn't got this.
Me and Jay Meach.
Oh, is she?
Yes. You know I gotta come over and get away till I leave. What happened, Ray?
No, a skillet was left on in the house.
Over
and I guess
there?
everybody's forgotten about it. Yeah.
You know, they always trying to put people out.
Already? Us? We one of them.
They say a burn down.
Man, you know, the address piles used to be Old Place, which is no longer, has been evicted. And that's the eviction notice on the door. Just shortly before Yoshi's get here. Yoshi's probably bought it. And will probably be the one to put something here. Eviction notice. 'Cause you can move.
Obviously, they didn't stay in an area where you need to file an OCC complaint. Because if you're getting mishandled by the department and you don't have some way to resolve that, most of the times you have to see these officers again and again. Because they work in the area for a long period of time. In other words, cops is not moving like day and night. You may have a cop working in Park Station for 3 to 4 years. And since they asked to work in certain districts, it should make us really want to see there be some accountability. So I think that it's time for us to look at ways, way in advance, of putting propositions together as a community and taking it to the people. Not just the community that's being affected, but I got a strong belief that if we take it to all San Francisco, you will see that the people will respond, because no one likes rogue police officers. Now, if I'm a civilian and, you know, I don't have no gun on me right now, this is a pager, right? But and people you have all these criminal laws to protect other people from other people. How much more then, as us, it's actually our duty to make sure that our police department is being held accountable with the highest standards. And we should not have to beg our chief to meet with us. We should not have to beg for the police commission to answer to when we believe there's an unjust murder. It's puzzling to me to hear that some of the most obvious cases of police officers shooting down victims in the street, and these cases drag on and on and on through the OCC process. Sometimes, you know, they just study the case almost to death. And you have the families that get so frustrated with the system, we don't want to lose people, because when that happens, that same exact family that once who believed in the system becomes the family that now is saying, oh man, they all the same, I don't trust them. And then now you got another campaign again to bridge a further gap between the community and law enforcement. Now I'm just say, you know, about, you know, for what we hear tonight, we're just here as, I guess you can say, just a kickoff. Because there's many of people that's involved in this process, but everyone is kind of scattered a little bit. And we have many different organizations that's playing a critical role in our communities that we do have to commend their work. But until we bring them organizations together, you know, a fist is strength. But that's a slap, you know. That's an open fist, you don't have strength. So we bring the organizations together, that will give us a greater impact. And we will see that real quickly, organizations as well as the agencies that actually supposed to look out for the people and hold this department accountable will really answer to the people. So I'm proposing, and I did a year research in this, that we establish our own community accountability board. And how does that look? Because the first thing people say, as one lady told me, legally you can't do that. I said that's not true. Because legally, I'm a San Franciscan by law. And legally, no one can stop me from taking a report from Sister Sandra Bolden right here, as long as there's a disclaimer. Long as we have a waiver. They can't stop that. So we can enter into a contract and hold people accountable. Now, in terms of investigative and all these other different layers of legal remedies that we have to deal with, let the attorneys fight that out. But meanwhile, until we put together propositions, until we put together initiatives for the ballot, I think it's an emergency mode we need to be in right now, where we establish the review board and we pressure and we monitor OCC and we pressure and monitor the police commission. We're going to give them love recommendations, what I call them, because basically we all win if the recommendation is swallowed, accepted, and becomes a part of this system of the charter on down here in San Francisco. We're not trying to advise them to take any authority away from the chief, because the chief is appointed by the mayor. However, we still need another agency from the community perspective. And we'll worry about the other legal aspects when we get there with the propositions on the ballot, which I'm proposing for next year to put before the people. So, the interesting thing about this, in the peace plan of the African American Community Police Relations Board, it speaks to the community having a complaint system. It speaks to the community training and retraining officers, especially new officers coming into the impact area. It speaks to community policing from the community standpoint, and how we would meet with the captain as well as the command staff as well as the chief on a monthly basis, and maybe sometime emergency meetings, so we can kind of update each other and we can jump on the incidents that happens in our community before they just blow all out of proportion. Because normally, if you don't have somebody there to kind of like put out the fire or make sure that there's going to be some serious dialogue, one issue can get out of hand. When the task force raided Brothers Against Guns office down here at Plaza East, we jumped right on that. We didn't allow that to keep going, and by us jumping on that, it was resolved to a degree. Now, it could have been that, of course, it was the right people at the table at the right time that resolved that issue, but basically, that is an example of how community policing works. Where I can pick up the phone and say, you know, let me talk to somebody that this captain understands and respects, and we know each other. You know, maybe we have sat down and have lunch with each other. So this won't get out of hand, because Lil Ray and Officer so-and-so got into an altercation. And it won't spill over until, or if we don't jump on it, that one day, who's to say that that won't lead to some other extreme things that may happen, and then it's too late. And that's what can prevent a Rodney King riot, and all these things that then, when that happens, it's too late. And then everybody is scrambling and trying to find out what happened. So I think, the Accountability Review Board, from the community perspective, the way we're going to do this is going to be a fine niche. Meaning what? Meaning that you have all these organizations in San Francisco. San Francisco has the most nonprofit organizations in the United States, by the way. And we're going to handpick, I guess I can say that. We're going to handpick from the impact areas, those, and let them, if they want to refer someone from within their complex or areas within the cities, then fine, they can sit on a board or a committee to the board. Or otherwise, we will be able to identify people who's already doing this work anyway. That's like critical response, like he was sending them doing it. She's already doing the work. She's already heavily involved. She's know everybody within the system on how this thing works, because it's the dynamics that we're dealing with. And so that brings a lot to the table. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have the right people at the table at the right time. This will speed up this process because it doesn't take long. Now, a question was brought to myself when we had a meeting back of last year dealing with the African American Community Relations Board. Someone said, well, y'all trying to do a Black Panther thing, right? Where the Panthers used to go out and monitor the police. But mind you, different times brings, different solutions. And right now, I think the best thing that the city could have done was to accept that comprehensive plan from the African American Community Police Relations Board, because it left no one out. It brought everybody to the table, whether you was working for the DA, whether you're working in the public defender's office, whether you're working with the commission. It gave everybody a seat to help us bring all these different people together and bring this understanding together. But it's not over, and I don't think our city mayor, if we was to question him, would say that that plan would not work. But the political environment around community policing now has to be, I think issues have to be brought back to life. And it's serious. So that's one. Proposing that. The Accountability Review Board, again, will be made up of the people who's most impacted. Of course, we need experts that even advise the committee or the board. We need attorneys. We need people who's actually sits on other boards, or who actually has those connections to, like even for instance, the Relations Board, we had Marion Jackson. Marion Jackson was one of the first Black officers back in the 60s to sue the department and actually won, which helped the department to see that in order for the department to be able to excel in a city like this, which was becoming, different races and growing very fast, is that you couldn't no longer just say, well, we're just going to have, white males, Irish in the department. We have to let the Asians in. I don't care if they're tall or not. We have to open the department up to reflect the city of San Francisco. So there was a benefit of bringing someone in like that who we consider an expert, as well as a Richard Brown, who actually was a former Panther and knows what happened in the 60s. That's another story. But I had Jim Queen, who's the president of the Juvenile Commission, was supposed to give a presentation about district-based planning, and that's where it's a lot of work that's needed in controlling the economics, or I can guess you say the finances, coming out of the community in terms of the organizations. We got plenty of organizations, but there has to be some way that we monitor and make organizations is talking to each other. Because these clusters is causing so much confusion that most of the times we don't give our supervisor enough ammunition where he can go straight forward to the other supervisors and really speak with one voice on behalf of this community, because you might have someone saying, well, the priority is over here. It's not necessarily law enforcement. And then you may have another group saying, no, well, we're dealing with housing. Well, I say let's deal with all of that. That's socially, right? Now, of course, I'm taking the lead on this because I believe the police is the front line first. But that does not exclude the redevelopment. That does not exclude the other agencies that's been here and helped play a part of just the 640-something Black businesses that has disappeared. 600 and, they say it's what, 4 or 5 now, but it was 651, something like that, 35 years ago. So we got a lot of work to do. And I don't want even when we're dealing with the review board and dealing with police accountability, to never in there it get lost that it's not tied in to the CBOs, it's not tied in to the other things that's really have plagued this community so deeply. So I'm just going to real quickly turn it over for questions about them 2 points. And then we, because since everybody know each other, we ain't gonna act like we don't know each other in here. I know everybody got something to say, and that's a good thing. So, is there any questions?
What's going to be on the ballot next year? What would you like to see?
Well, that leads to the second page, right? Now, that's just nothing but a draft. Basically, what you're looking at is almost an what they put on the as an example. Believe it or not, I don't write policy. I'm just nosy enough when it comes to helping the community to just take a leap into the books that's already there and try to figure out how can we best design policy that's going to give the community and empower the community. And to answer your question, it doesn't have to look like that, because there's so many issues that I see that's open when you're dealing with the police commission. Like for instance, police commission has 7 members. Well, why not 11? Because every time you go to the commission, they says this very thing. We don't have enough staff, we don't have enough money. So many a times when they get complaints, the police commission from OCC, they're scrambling because they're not reading nothing. They got something else they're dealing with over here. They got to have a closed section about a murder or something. So they never really had a time to dedicate to each case that it will take. So why not, and maybe we can propose that to our supervisor, why not change the charter and make this commission, give this commission more power? Right now, the way it is right now, you have situations like, I believe, and Ross, you can correct me on this, the mayor appoints the chief. But even if the mayor wants to remove the chief, the mayor has to bring it before the board of supervisors in certain instances. Is that?
No, close though, very close. And I'm going to have to leave in a minute, but everything you said, Daniel, I absolutely agree with. I mean, you're very clear and focused, and I think it speaks to me. As it relates to the commission itself, in 2003, I helped run the campaign that changed how the commission is picked. We won that campaign. Up until 2003, all 7 members were picked by the mayor. Now 4 are picked by the mayor and 3 are picked by the board of supervisors. The mayor unilaterally appoints the police chief and the command staff. We have no say in that, which I think is wrong. And only the mayor through the police commission can remove the chief. The board still has no say.
Okay, now that's a valid point. Now look at this. The airport commission, which this is mind-boggling to me. We can recall certain people who's on certain commissions or what, like for instance, airport commission, but we can't recall a police commissioner. That doesn't make sense to me, because you're dealing with lives when you're talking about the police department. So if we can recall one over here, and you're dealing with airplanes, which I guess that's a safety issue too in itself with 9/11, but we should be able to recall police commissioners. Why not? But until we started raising these questions and started asking questions like, well, okay, why does the charter does not allow the people to do that? Since the mayor has all this power, as what our supervisor said, to appoint people. So what you see with the second page is nothing like, again, but something like a designing mode of policy that the city can embrace, or we can just use from and start developing something and crafting something that they will have to embrace. Because when you start going out to all the different associations, the neighborhood associations, and all the voters, the block voters, at the end of the day, that's what's going to move the departments to do anything, is when you're dealing with the votes. Now, I mean, that's a part of this in one sense. We have to become so political when we get the vote in the block, because we have to make sure that anyone who want to be placed in office have to go through this body of people who wants to see certain policies that's changed. And that'd be a beautiful thing. Thanks for coming out.
My pleasure. And if you really get to the stage of wanting to do a ballot measure charter, I'd love to sit down and talk with you.
Definitely. I think
no easy feat, man. No easy feat at all.
Definitely.
All right,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, what's the difference between the accountability review board and the police, the one
Relations.
Yeah. Is there any difference between the two? Will they be doing the same type of work, or?
The only difference is that the accountability review board, in from what I envision, is that it was specifically focused on a complaint, where the relations board is like an umbrella that deals with all these other different things, you know, training, retraining, or conflict of interest and all that old stuff. But the complaints review board, we need to narrow down our effort and just have a body that just focuses on, okay, this police officer over here has said something that's inappropriate to this person over here. We need to resolve that. And we need to be clear to the department as a whole, but as well as to the district stations, that that's unacceptable. Officers can't curse at civilians of San Francisco. We can curse at them, which is not tasteful. I wouldn't do it and I wouldn't suggest it. But they can't curse back at us. They do it. And that's what we gotta stop. Because see, on their own department general orders, it's law that says that they can't do it. And most of the time, even when we take down, you know how we do in the hood, we're like, give me your star number. Everybody just asking, give me your star number. What is that gonna really do if you, at the end of the day, we don't follow up? All it's gonna do is that we might put in a complaint with OCC or make a phone call, but it's gonna die at the desk, or they're gonna put it in a dead file and it's just gonna sit there. One of the things that happened, which was great for the community a few years ago, they had a charter, well, not a charter amendment, but they had another proposition that came out that gave OCC more authority. And it also, at one time, if a complaint wasn't sustained, it wasn't left on the officer's file forever. But now, any complaint that you file against a police officer remains with that officer during his whole time as a police officer. So that's a victory, but that's a small victory. Because we're in a position right now, if we start becoming politically savvy with this and start understanding that we have to know the policy from the top down. And Ross understands that. Because his whole, you know, thing of becoming, if he wants to become mayor one day, is votes. And once we are able to persuade an association like Panhandle Association or Haight-Ashbury Association, these are the ones that he's answering to. Japantown, the outskirts. But we're so unorganized in the areas like right here, the lower FILLMORE, that we don't represent votes. And that's why most of the time we're doing a lot of singing, dancing, and shouting, but nothing is getting done. So this is where we can start throwing, you know, when you boxing, it's always good to step back. If you're gonna really throw one, you know, put your shoulder into it. That's how I was taught. If you're gonna really hit the city, you gotta hit them where it hurts at. And it hurts with policy. Everybody moves when it comes to policy. The best thing about this too, when you put together initiatives on the ballot, everybody who's a registered voter will be able to see actually what are you proposing. So you have a roughly 750-some thousand people in San Francisco. The last election, from what I counted, was something like 440,000 registered voters. I would like to talk to 440,000 voters and see, do they see what I see? Now, if you're telling me, as if you're a person that stays somewhere in Twin Peaks, yeah, I'm in San Francisco, but I really don't understand what the hell y'all talking about down there in the Western Addition. If you're telling me that when the Lady arm got broke towards the build-up to going in Iraq and they had this demonstration on Market Street, that shows that it's not about race. It's something about the department and this use of force. And it doesn't matter if you're black or white or if you got a lot of money. When it comes down to it, if you're on the wrong side, you can be hurt, if not killed. And these type of things, at least this discussion has got to happen. Because I don't want, we say spiritually, because I'm a Muslim, straight up. And we say spiritually, you got to get the blood off your hands. I know for a fact that if this country invades Iran, everything changed all the way down on the street level. Authority is going to come out a little more harsh on the people. So normally a gang injunction like right now, where the brothers like, man, I'm on a gang injunction, but they can't catch me. They know where you at. And you're not going to be able to run and hide from what they're planning to do. Because wherever you see gang injunction, you see the big developers walking in right after Dennis Herrera in our city.
I know I'm late, but I just want to know, because I know I talked to the chief personally on Saturday. Where's the police?
That might, well, that might be a good thing, actually, that they're not here. But the chief was, like Eris is saying, the chief was notified. And, I think, though, dealing with the climate, on a lot of other things that's going on in Park Station, right now, I could be wrong, but I think the chief is not even expecting to be around, basically. Because we do know that the mayor asked for everybody resignation letter, and everything is kind of like in limbo until he, gets back in office. Yeah, he had his inauguration, get back in office. So I wouldn't look at that as necessarily a bad thing. It is what it is. But again, we got to push our own policy because they will listen. You won't even have to tell, you have to tell the chiefs to stop coming if we keep organizing, because she'll be at the door and calling everybody. But they only hear to unity and grassroots organization. They don't hear the big, loud mouth, and just going on and on. They're not concerned about that. That's not threatening anything. But the moment we start saying, well, wait a minute, let's change the law and let's hold everybody accountable, you'll see the chief. Like, we didn't have no problem meeting with the chief when we was really forming our branches throughout San Francisco with the African American Community Police Relations Board. It was only to some of us, who was a little bit uninformed, start undermining the process and create another climate where people start, all of a sudden so-and-so got a job, which normally they couldn't get a job.
And I'm glad you say that. With this, how do you stop the undermining with this project right now that you're trying to put together?
Work them to death. I've been told straight up, if you want to get rid of hypocrites, and this is the teaching of the Nation of Islam, which I'm a member of, work a hypocrite to death. You'll be the hardest working, undermining hypocrite ever. Because we're going to have you moving tables, chairs, doing research. We're going to have you going picking up people. Because basically, it's difficult to work when you don't believe in something. It's very difficult. You got to really love, but this is why I don't, even though sometimes, I do get tired, because I'm doing the work, and we don't say it's really a thankless job, because you do it for God, basically. But however, though, there's some quiet moments that I reflect and be like, wow, you mean to tell me that just before Dr. King got his head blown off, he knew about it? He knew that the people wasn't ready to receive his word, or the word. But he had to deliver it anyway. But when you have those around you who would say, hey, Martin, come on down here to Memphis. Come on down. We got a garbage strike. Come on down. And they setting up the stage. And then that opens up a door for the brother to get assassinated. That's real. That's the history. But the way you deal with it, work them to death. And the more you organize, the more you manifest hypocrisy. The more you organize, if you keep, because see, ultimately, any politician knows this, and Ross knows this. he can say, and I'm not gonna say Ross is not with us, but I always tell Ross is with conditions that I support you. And I tell the community, don't stand me up nowhere and say, Daniel got my back in the community. Nah, I ain't got your back unless you got the community back. It's with a condition. But anyway, all politicians know that it ain't what you say right here, it's what you say with your vote. Because once we go before the Board of Supervisors, or once we go to all these hearings and committees, like they always tell us when it comes to gang and junk, they say, well, that's the state. The state defines who the gangs is. So don't blame Dennis Ferreira and blame the city. And I keep saying, well, the state is not God. Let's go up to Sacramento. I want to go look the person in the eye like this. You say you know what gangs is about? What's your name, sir? And have a dialogue with him or her. Because I know what gangs is about. I was a gang member. I know what gangs is about. I know the brothers out there and the sisters out there, everybody ain't bad because they outside and hanging around and got a name or slogan that they done tucked under their wing. What's so bad about that? Some call it graffiti, some call it art. But if I put 5, 6, 7 up and you put 3, 7, 8 up, that's how we recognizing each other. This guy over here put up Enron and Lennar, right? That's their slogan. But at the end of the day, if you put up even, what do they call it, SFGT, which is San Francisco Gang Task Force, that's a slogan. So it's all in the eye of beholder. That's the point I'm making about gangs. It's all in the eye of beholder. And basically, for those who try to undermine organizations, all we have to do is really just get organized and get committed. Because one of the things that we struggle with in our community, and this is why there ain't a lot of marriage going on in the black community, I know, we're not committed. We would rather be solo. And that's a problem. Since the family is the cornerstone of a nation. Where you have weak families, you got weak nations. Where you got weak individuals, you got weak families. So men and women should be ready to jump over the broom. I mean, like as of yesterday. Now, I don't mean to go out and just marry anybody either. I'm just saying, though, let's keep it real, though. America have declined morally from the years of how it used to be to where we at now. There's a decline, and it's rapidly happening. And I can't, as a person who understands, I can't, say that it's not affecting us all around, because this affects all the dynamics, whether it's doing law enforcement or anything.
I just wanted to ask 2 quick questions. When will there be another meeting around the Accountability Review Board and having it become like a ballot? And when will the African American Community Police Relations Board begin meeting again?
Well, that right now is, we want to meet here again. I know Lisa said within 2 weeks, but we're going to work that out. We're definitely within 2 weeks. But of course, there's a lot of stuff going on here with Elliot, as we already know. But that doesn't stop meetings, and that doesn't stop progress. But within 2 weeks for the Accountability Review Board, in terms of the African American Community Relations Board, it's being reconstituted. Because now we got to kind of deal with some of the you got things that have changed. Of course, they said with the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding that we signed with Chief Lau, April 11, 2002, that there wasn't no sunset on that date. So the administrations had to carry it from Chief Lau to Gavin Newsom administration. However, though, they still haven't accepted formally. So we got to push the commission now to do a new MOU. So they can get back active again. Because basically what they're saying is, well, where's Willie Brown? He's not here. Chief Lau not here. That's the old stuff. We got to get them to revise that so we can hold them accountable. And like I put on this, and y'all can fill out if you want to fill out. I just did an example, because what we're going to start setting up booths up here on Fillmore Street and start, handing them out to the people and stuff. But basically, it's to build up a database of what the people want. or what the people want to consider. If you're not sure, just put not sure. But we got to start having this conversation around ballot initiatives and the election.
Is there some sort of, my name's Hayward and I live in the Mission. I do cop watch, but just informally, like I just walk around and now I'm starting to think I shouldn't do that by myself because there's been some problems with that. But it seems like there's no place to report that stuff. Like, do you have some kind of website or a written?
No, this is all. I guess you can say this is the beginning of of laying the foundation. However, though, this which I didn't say, the Accountability Review Board is going to work in collaborative with Brothers for Change, which is the executive director right behind you there, and we're going to actually work out of Elder Hill. So this would be like, and this was actually the base for the African American Community Public Relations Board. I don't know if you ever heard about them, but this will be like our base until we actually start the ball to roll in different areas throughout the city. Because we could have easily just called it the Western Edition of the Accountability Review Board and just deal with all the work here, but this is a city issue. So anything that you're doing with another organization, whether it's Cop Watch, I'm familiar with Cop Watch, and or even the other organizations that deal with police brutality, really it's gonna speak volumes when we start sitting down in one sense and start communicating on how we can form either a bigger alliance. Because I think that's what the commission tends to really respect and answer to when they see all of us align together and say, look, we're all against police brutality. You might have one organization over here that has, their whole theme of their organization though might be just speaking to police brutality, but then you might have one organization like ours who's dealing with training and some other issues, but we can still come together. Because at the end of the day, bad training leads to police brutality. So it all works hand in hand. But to answer your question though, we'll be working out of here, Elder Hill, with Brothers for Change and many other organizations. So is there any more questions, comments? Anybody want to volunteer, sign up? You want to, whatever. I mean, just remember that, the ball is already, somewhat done, took off.
I have one more question. What do you recommend for people right now to do? Because as we speak, it's situations that's going to be going on right now, whether it's in the Mission, whether it's in Baby Hunters Point, whether it's in the Western Addition. If somebody run across a problem that they had with the police, what do you recommend them to do right now?
Well, definitely, we're definitely saying you have to file a report. As much as I beat up on OCC, still file a report. Because you got to document what happened. Now, if you don't file a report with OCC, still write it out and tell as many people you can, but we have to document everything from A to Z, because if this officer today beat me up and I don't record that, and then 2 weeks later he beat me up worse, it's going to be that much harder for me to prove that, look, he just got a problem with me. But if I got a document over here, like right now, I got plenty of documents on police officers going all the way back to John Blessing. Some people know John Blessing, some people don't, but, and the bottom line is I could bring back them documents. Me and Eris had an issue with King Security at Safeway.
Oh.
And everybody got an issue with King Security. See, the sisters bear with me, right? And we filed a complaint, well, I guess you wouldn't call it a complaint though. Well, we did. We filed a complaint with the NAACP. No response from the NAACP, which is only a block away. And we also filed a complaint with Safeway. And this was a time when Walter was there as the manager of Safeway. I don't know if he's still there or not. But my point is, though, every time I walk into Safeway to this day, I can remember that incident as if it was yesterday. But I be literally waiting for an incident to happen now. Because I got so many documents that I could prove that, look, this is it's not something that just happened. This is a pattern. So the point that I was saying, D, is we got to file, we got to build up a case. We're dealing with a case. I'll call you.
Yes.
Definitely.
And let me know when that meeting is happening, so.
Definitely.
Take care, everyone. Sorry.
You know, I just want to speak to that when he was talking about what can we do right now. One of the things that we were planning on doing was, when we had the relations board going on, was everybody gearing up with cameras. We got Raymond up the way, and we was trying to get somebody down here, and that's when police activity was heavy, when, you know, I know it ain't too heavy right now, you know, because of everything that's going on, but we was trying to get everybody loaded up with a camera, you know what I'm saying, and just be outside, you know, like everybody was hanging out and everything, you know, just have a camera, you know, and we wasn't really able to do that, but I know Raymond got a lot of footage on police.
7 years worth.
You know, up the way, you know, got some down here. So that's one of the things that we was talking about doing, you know, we get back to that, is arming people with, you know, a camera and just taking footage. You know, you just happen to be walking by a cop, you know, doing some things, you just pull out the camera.
And let me just say this, that's just like filing a report, because it's video footage is just like document footage in one sense. Well, maybe you want to use footage, but it's the same thing. You record actually what's taking place. And that's what's so valuable about that. So I would say too, to add to that though, you know, because Huey Newton said that, right, that in terms of securing, you know, or going against the police and making sure they're accountable, the greatest weapon, as we know, is knowledge. One thing that I had to do immediately once I started getting harassed by the police when I was real young was start, well, I need to know what is a certificate of release and how does that, you know, pertain to what they just did to me. So we used to always say, oh man, I plead the fifth, or they got 72 hours to file. So I had to come to the conclusion that we got to make ourselves too knowledgeable about what they know. We need to know what the Department General Orders is. You can actually request, and they'll put it on this, all the Department General Orders from Sergeant Rowley at the Hall of Justice. Send them a kite, request it, and just put under public records, because that's the law act, I request so-and-so and so-and-so. And once you get that disc, you can go actually on your computer and you can find anything dealing with the department that they have to follow and abide by, because it's under the charter. And that gives you ammunition right there, because a cop could come right up in here right now and just arrest us, throw us everywhere, right? And then take our belongings, our property, but then they can say, what's evidence? Now, how many people know the difference between property or evidence? Which is a big question, because they still got jackets of mine. They didn't have for about 20 years down at 850 Bryan, which it wasn't evidence. How can my jacket be evidence unless I did something with the jacket on? Some things is not evidence, right? So that's the type of things that I would suggest too that we need to do, like ASAP, is become knowledgeable about the department rules and regulations.
How many young people do you think, for example, being targeted by the injunctions know about like OCC? They know what to do if they're harassed by the police?
Not many, at all. And then you still dealing with the trust factor. See, because for me, I don't have really confidence in OCC. So it's difficult to just get out here and be an OCC fan. But at the same time, by understanding the way the system works, you can't even go to really the police commission until you done took the initiative steps. Because if you go to the commission, they're only going to give you 3 minutes anyway, and you get up there just ramping out, the police did this, and this, they're just going to look at you. Did he file a complaint to OCC? Disregard it. But if they are looking at the documents right there while you're talking about OCC, and you done sent them a letter and you know what you're talking about, they're going to take a closer look. So them little brothers out there who don't, we need to have workshops though. We invited OCC to set up a satellite office in the Western Addition. They haven't done it. We said you need to set one up in the Mission. You need to come right here, could have been Ella Hill or the West Bay. But set up a satellite office where you out there every day handing out pamphlets and making it sure the young brothers know that they have somewhere they can go file a complaint. And then even OCC would get some of that dirt from the department that they have on their face. I should have said mud. Because that have trickled down from the department, the POA, Police Officers Association as well as OCC. And when you go to the young brother, everybody know that if they don't trust them, and I'm saying they all in bed too with each other, and I'm involved in the community, then it's a trust factor. And nobody's going all the way down on 2nd Street to file a complaint with OCC. So that's what we need to do. We need to have workshops, and we need to engage them on how important it is to file. Because you can't even sue, actually, the department until you file certain, claims with the city, if I'm correct. You have to file certain claims with the city before you're even eligible to sue the department. So it's all about steps. Now I put on here too, and on this last note, well, I didn't put it on here, but I put together this other document about the U.S. Justice Department. And I read something. Let me just share this before we go. I know everybody, this was deep though. I think it's relevant to what we're saying here. This is Chief Fung, first of all, that what I mentioned earlier, the community policing that came out, her report, November 2006, which is nothing really but blase, and damn near just lip service, because you can't hold no one accountable for this. It's not a part of the DGO, right?
Excuse me, the Public Records Act lets you have rules and regulations with PD. You said it was on a disc, and you go to Sergeant Raleigh. Is that at 8?
850 Brian, yeah, Raleigh. He's on the, I think it's the 5th floor. He's on the same level as the chief, and he's the secretary of the police commission, right?
And what is the regulation you used a phrase for it, but I didn't get that.
Oh, for the police, I got it right here.
You said it just before the Public Records Act.
I mean, yeah, this is two things. I got everything. One thing, we got to be organized, right? Because they say an unorganized truth would be overtaken by organized lies. So the police department is one thing that they do have is that they organize. They lying, but they organize. They lying though, but they organize. I mean, you go in there, they can tell you who you was before you even came on this planet, right?
Because I just don't know what to ask them for.
The general orders, is that?
Well, no, you can just say public record, actually. You don't have to, because I mean, you don't have to be specific. That's what I say. I just said public record, which of course encompass state, federal, local, whatever. But now look at this. This was dated back in January 1st, 1999. This is a complaint by the U.S. District Court in Western District of Pennsylvania, right, versus the city of Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, and the Department of Public Safety, the defendant. Now this is what was interesting when I did the research on this, right? The United States is suing the police department. But what took them to this point is that the people organized and over a period of time proved that there was some problems with this Pittsburgh Police Department, which they call PBP, right? Law enforcement. Now look what some of the things. Now you tell me if this is happening here or not. On one of the sections, it says from at least 1990 to the present, Pittsburgh Bureau of Police officers have engaged and continue to engage in a pattern of practice that's falsely arresting persons in Pittsburgh. These false arrests include, but not limited to, falsely arresting people who witness incidents and violent police misconduct, who threaten to report incidents of the police misconduct or seek to collect evidence of the police misconduct. Stop right there. A few years ago, and I have my witness bearer right here, which is our brother right here with the camera. They took the camera from him. And it was a fight between some young girls in the neighborhood up here on Edge Street.
New Orleans in the Bay Area and their fathers.
They took the camera, evidence. And I know by doing cop watch, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They will take it, the evidence, the police, when they know that they have done something wrong. Now, if you don't have certain things in place, like in a review board, like what we're, attempting to establish here, how can you make sure that the police don't say, okay, I know there's a law that says you have a right to be an onlooker between me and him. The hell with that law. and do what they gonna do. And then the rookie cop is supported by the sergeant is supported by the lieutenant is supported by the captain, so they're just pushing it under and under the table, and nobody hears about it. Because basically the districts have a way of suppressing a lot of things on the district level, and people don't go above their head. Now look at this though. It says from 1990, this was 99. So from 1990, it took 9 years of this to take place and accumulate before they actually stepped in. The point is, if they haven't improperly stopping and detaining persons without lawful authority, that sounds like the gang task force right there. Improperly searching cars, incidents to traffic stops without lawful authority. Me and Eric just witnessed that 2 days ago. A police officer, I mean, he's just pulling over people because he can, right in front of Starbucks. They wasn't parked illegally, nothing. He just, let me see your license ID. When we stood there and watched them. So the incidents is happening daily, right? And then it deals with failing to train adequately police officers to prevent the occurrence of misconduct. That goes back again to community policing. Because who's training them? Who's training them, as Lieutenant Khan say, in the science of policing? There's a science to policing. If you see someone walking towards you as a police officer, you can't just say, I mean, they use discretion all the time, but you shouldn't say that, well, is he holding a gun? What is he doing? What is he pertaining to? You should, first of all, realize that you in his community. That's number one. So you can, if by having a relationship maybe with his uncle or cousin or knowing him by name, breaks down the tension. Because when I see an officer that I know personally and I've sat in a meeting with, that stereotype, stereoization goes out the window. Where I normally may have when I see another cop just be like, okay, what are you gonna try to get me on this time? So the training has got to be unique, and it's got to be from people like myself, who's an ex-gang member, who's been to prison, who sold drugs, I sold guns, and that's all else I'm gonna say for the record. Not this kid. But I'm just saying, you need people like myself, as well as them type of officers who's just the officers like, no, I love law enforcement, and I be golly, we're gonna, this is about law enforcement on mine. I need to talk to them. People like me and them need to sit down. Because our supervisor know, because Ross, one of the good things about Ross, he trained in the academy. And next time we invite him to the meeting, we can sit down and he can go over that. He actually know about this police force. He trained in the academy. He knows all what they're learning. And they're not learning to come out here and have a made up mind. They're learning coming out here to use discretion. And this is why under 311, the community policing under the charter, which is theirs is real though, simple in general, but it does say that they have to reach out with the community and hear what the community wants.
I like the theory of community policing, and I believe forth, but I mean, there's drug infiltration, guns being brought into community connections with the police, and historically, and
right.
particularly when we're talking about the Black Panther Party, I mean, this seems like the next wave of that, the gang injunctions, just sort of reinforce that impunity, and I'm just wondering, I feel like I want to put a question behind that, because I don't want to undermine what you're saying with with quality of life issues that neighborhood associations like in the Tenderloin, they're predominantly white people. It seems like they look out their window 24 hours a day, and they're saying things to each other in meetings like, "Did you see the Ecuadorians down the street? Does anyone know anything about them?" They're like, "Oh, we're on it." They have like the police chief address them in the meeting every week. They get or the precinct captain reports to them every single week. He's like accountable to them, gives the crime report and all this, because they have ties to the businesses, to the money in the area.
But see, they could stop crime instantly. crime does pay. It just doesn't pay us. It pays those deputies, the judges, all of a sudden now even our DA, Kamala Harris, all of a sudden she gives fairs and big old events. That was unheard of 25 years ago. That you would have, can you imagine if Michael Hennessy, who's over the sheriff department, was talking about he's gonna give a big old town hall meeting to deal with law enforcement? That was unheard of. But now you're dealing with a time. I read a book, just to answer your point about communities, because when they have vigilante groups here in San Francisco, taking it all the way back, that's what pushed the city to say, well, we need a police force that's answering to the people. They didn't have no commission, but they had groups that understood that, look, if you don't actually enforce the laws, we're going to enforce them ourselves. So they had public hangings on Market Street. One public hanging took place at a lot of people don't know this, the old City Hall, which was the Ramada Hotel. The Ramada Hotel down on Market and what's that, 8th? They have an underground cell. There's a police underground cell there. That was an old place where they took people, hung them up, and had these big old, oh, look at him. He shouldn't have stole anything out of my liquor store. Well, I guess it wasn't a liquor store, but you know, what they had them to go, you know.
Moonshine back then.
Yeah. So, or, you know, still in stagecoaches and all that type of stuff. But my point is, though, the Tenderloin, which brought that new station on Eddy Street, spent a lot of money. All these fairly new police district stations, they have spent tons of money. So when I hear Captain Ehrlich say that, you know, we don't get the credit up here in Park Station, is it that you want a new station up at Park Station? Because that's a very old station, by the way. But I said to him, are y'all competing? Since the jurisdiction of Northern versus Park is splitting up the Western Addition, and we're suffering because if right now if I'm getting mugged, right, on one side, and you call the police department, it's got to go all the way downtown to the dispatcher and go all the way back around just to get an officer to answer that call because you're on the wrong side of Steiner. When the police could just come out right out of Northern Station. It damn near would take you to actually get shot, and they still gonna be late. Because when the two brothers got killed up at Robert Pitts here on Turk, I was the first one to ride to the scene while everybody else was running. I'm the first one running to the scene trying to give this brother, you know, some comfort while he was breathing his last little breath. But even law enforcement, when they got to the scene, and we got this on tape. We got that whole incident on tape.
November 23rd, 05.
It's on tape. They come to the scene. And I meant to say with Chief Fung, we need to sit down and go over that. Because they come to the scene. And instead, I know that once someone gets shot, it's a crime scene and all this stuff. I don't know the ins and outs of it. But just to save life, if you're a police officer, I know you have some type of medical skills. I mean, I even had it. I done went and took CPR, first aid. I got all these different certificates myself. So how much more would a police officer who knows how to calm the situation down? I couldn't get nobody to throw a pillow out the window, and this brother was bleeding in 5 different places. So when they both died right there on Turk Street, and the people start gathering around and start wanting questions, all emotional, first thing we say to the police, so what are you going to do about this? And not CRN, which is where Sandra from, but the other critical response group didn't even show up. So we had to call them, we had to call Ross, we had to make sure that, look, it's going to be a riot out here. People is upset. You got 2 dead young men on Turk Street, across the street from an elementary school.
Oh, yeah. Under the crossfire and automatic weapons.
While they was coming out of school, actually.
They were out on recesses, I heard, and they had little pieces of their little oranges and milk, crap, all that stuff spilled because the teacher just ran them back in school.
So this is a great time. This is like, you know, just getting back to, like, you got community watch, you got all these different things, safety this, safety that. None of that is going to work And to the people who's actually doing this community watching for problems that's going on, understand that you gotta first hold the department accountable. You can't just say it's everybody who's outside who's doing something illegal. You can't have that one-sided mind track. Because if I say, I can't go to the community right now and say, look, y'all need to just need to get all y'all act together, y'all the problem, y'all the problem, y'all the problem. What I gotta do is somehow bridge the understanding that, look, we got people in the community is the problem, but we got people in the department is a problem. And believe me right now, if you go to Safeway, there's an employee that's undermining Safeway. If you go to Target, there's an employee somewhere that's not in sync with the mission statement of Target. So don't tell me the great San Francisco Police Department, which has almost 2,400 sworn officers, don't have some cops who just want to come out here and just, man, I've got a license to just, what you looking at? Put it over and all that old type of stuff. Want to just kind of, you know, work it out a little bit. That's just real. Now, of course, you got some who's like, I want to really, really try to stop the violence. But I would say, like, you know, it was said before, if you're so interested in stopping the violence, why don't you go to the hot spots and just post up? And anybody gets to start shooting, then you need to be right there in the middle of it as a police officer. Because I expect an officer to jump in front of a bullet before it hit me. That's what we pay you for. Right? I mean, that's just real. I don't have no bulletproof vest on. I might have to before it's over, but I don't have one on now. But I'm saying, that's what we pay these officers for. To protect us. Serve and protect. And since they're trained and got all these different things, you would think that they would be on the front line. But you see incidents happen at Juneteenth, for instance. It was a lot of young brothers, you know, looking at each other crazy. You could tell it was tension. I see the gang task force standing over in the corner like this, just looking. Now the gang task force, mind you, don't have to answer to the police department, nobody. They don't even answer to the chief. The gang task force, who has a mysterious boss somewhere where nobody seems to know, because they never give reports to the commission. So I've been constantly asking the question, who is over the gang task force? Are they over themselves? But at this incident at Juneteenth, so the little brothers started looking at each other crazy. Some started just like, what? You know, giving a little image. By me knowing them and knowing that, look, come on, man, you still wet behind the ear. You don't mean all that. I stepped in between. But at any moment, you know, because nowadays it's a lot different from even when I was out there. A 12-year-old though do have a mindset of, look, kill or be killed. It ain't no more fighting. It's more like, look, I'm going to get you before you get me. But where was the police? Because it was plenty of them there. They was on the outskirts, and the gang task force seems to me was exciting the issue. Because they would go over here and say, hey, man, you know, yeah, y'all from KO, man, y'all better be, woo, they kind of tough over there. And then walk out and then go over here and talk to the other little group. And then next thing you know, now they're looking at each other. Not even paying to Rapping Forte on stage. Look, listen to Forte. Now y'all, they looking at each other and ready to go at it. And this is a great problem. This is why we got to get control of all of them, basically. The gang task force, the police department, the commission, OC. We have to get them we have to hold them accountable at the highest level. And we have to threaten them and follow through with the U.S. Justice Department. And I'm willing, and I'm going to go to one of the Justice Department meetings up here at our great federal building. I haven't went to the new federal building. I think I need to go there too. Just to see. Because whether Nancy Pelosi want to do the right thing or not, or Mrs. Feinstein, we got to hold them accountable what they say out of their mouth that's they're about, which is San Francisco being a sanctuary city. So we're going to meet within the next 2 weeks. I need everybody email if you possibly have one, so we can kind of have a...
I mean, I know you live, we live in the same place. I just have got this, I want to know, I read the debate in paper.
Okay.
So I have to come down
I-
and represent my family.
yeah, I fill you in.
I get you.
All right, thank you. So, you know, we can follow up from here. Is there any more questions before we shut it down?
I got one. I got some envelopes, paper, and stamps. You said Pelosi, and it reminded me. She said she got 10,000 letters saying start impeachment proceedings, that she'd actually do it, and take it and put it back on the table, or Cheney, or both, who knows. But anyway, it's hearsay, but Cindy Sheehan said, okay, let's take her up on it. Send all the letters to me, we'll count them, keep her honest, and we'll send her 10,000. Anyway, I've got stamps on a little paper, if everybody would just start impeachment, dear Nancy, start impeachment proceedings. Thank you, do it immediately, and sign your name and address, and put it in the mailbox.
Well, yeah, I don't know how far that'll go because of the, you know, you got the election season. But I mean, you know, anything that, you know, anyone feel that's, you know, that can hold even, you know, yeah, administration sometimes is a good thing. But a lot of, I mean, you just had Feinstein just voted to nominate, or the guys that were nominated by George Bush to be on the Attorney General, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and she's a Democrat, by the way, so I don't know about that. But I got everybody email, I'm gonna just send everybody an email to follow up with everything that's going on. And we're gonna take it from there and keep, and that proposed proposition is gonna be actually, next time we see it, it's gonna evolve a little bit and get some better input, because I'm gonna meet with OCC. They got a new director too, by the way, OCC. Just appointed. Kevin is not there, so we'll be able to, you know, see where we go from there. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Get some of this energy off me, you know what I'm saying? You be doing all this studying and learning all this stuff out.
That's right.
Because it's like being pregnant. You know, men get pregnant too.
Pregnant when I get
Yeah, men get pregnant. We gotta.
Like this? You do that, a big old hole in his
Okay, it's still leaking. So how long is? Okay, and what about the sucking up the water out the carpet with the vacuum stuff? No, not with my vacuum, with the water vac that you guys have. You know that you suck the water up out the carpet? Because that's going to be soiled and wet and moist and start to stink.
Unless you got a bathtub, gotta take all the water for a couple of days.
Tomorrow morning, it has to be early because I'm out of here. I'll be heading to the airport. So I'll be over to the office.
That's right.
Kenneth Supreme McGriff, huh? I don't understand why, if this shit is so violent.
said no. He said he tried to move it. So we're trying.
A little bit.
Dude ran the light
In the truck.
in the truck, and the cops was trying to say he did.
Yeah, he did. He did run it.
But you didn't catch it, right?
I came out. But I seen it though. Who was driving the Saturn? Oh, you guys driving? Yeah, dude ran it.
Anyway, I can use you as a witness?
Yeah. I live right here, in the building right behind them. My name is Raymond Washington. They know me. I've been doing this for years. Yeah, you could. I don't have no problem with
So I
that.
appreciate that. They like, they didn't want to hear what I gotta say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know I saw it too. What's up, lady?
Alright. Yeah, you can, man.
Right on, bro. I appreciate it.
That's not a problem. Why are the undercovers here?
Yeah. I got like a 2 feet over here still. He's coming this way. Straight ahead. They ain't gonna go anywhere. You shut it off. He got it, Mark. He got it.
Just write it down. Raymond Washington, R-A-Y-M-O-N-G. And I'll say right here, 1625 Eddy Street, apartment 409. It's this building right, we're standing right behind me.
Oh, 409?
Yeah.
Washington.
409. Raymond Washington.
Is there a way I can call you?
Yeah.
It's possible.
It's 415-678-9100.
Yeah, they try to make me out of talking to people. Did you see the skid marks over here? Did you take that?
This him right here?
That's me with the skid mark.
Come up right here. Yeah, he came from that one.
Yeah, so I was coming like this. I started my brakes right there.
Yeah. All right.